previewing some of our upcoming Week 5 matchups. I'm your host, Crewman44. My friends, if you could please introduce yourselves with your IGN, what team and league you're playing in this season, and now that we're halfway through the regular split, with the exception of the Arbiter League, of course, please tell us how you feel about your team's performance so far and your current power level, knowing that you have exactly half of the regular season ahead of you, or in the case of the Arbiter League, of course, exactly one more match before playoffs. We're coming to you first, Storm.
So, as always, I'm the mid laner for New Origins Phoenix. Pretty far with the season. I can't be mad. We've only dropped one game, and I'm pretty excited to see what the rest of the season is. I don't want to say our schedule in the back half's any harder than the front half, but there are some teams that I've got a little bit of history with, and I'm looking forward to playing, and just looking forward to all the games.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I can go next. So TD Complex here, the top laner for TD Blessed in Sentinel League. We are 3-1 so far on the season. Only dropped to Plasma Wolves, and we shouldn't have dropped that game. Have hot takes about Sentinel, but I think TD Blessed is one of, if not the best team in the league. So definitely confident there, but. Yeah, I think we'll make a run in playoffs and definitely excited for it, but glad to be here.
Glad you're here as well.
I can go
Queen.
next. I'm Accel. I'm the coach for TD Chrono Break in the Arbiter League. We're 2-2 currently, but I'm kind of glad that we've lost some games. I think that's where you get the most information to work with about what you can do to improve. And our team kind of needed that direction. So I'm really excited for the next 2 weeks. We have a bye week next week, or I guess tomorrow. So I'm really excited for the work that we're going to do over the next week to get prepared for playoffs.
Absolutely. Last but not least.
Hey, I'm Rept. I'm the mid laner for Sin Reds. We've only lost one series so far, and that was obviously to NO Phoenix. Storm might say I got gapped a little, even though due to his ping issues, maybe he got solo killed. No, but yeah, I would say our team. Honestly, I think we're incredibly good. Obviously, I know Phoenix. I think everybody knows they're really good as well. So dropping to them doesn't really, make us feel any worse. So.
Absolutely. Seems like pretty much everybody's feeling relatively confident with current performance so far this season. So very glad to hear that. And then let's go ahead now, guys. We'll move on to our first topic, the Arbiter League, of course. It's going to be where we're headed first. So taking a look at last week's results. So we did have Accel. Your squad did go down 1-2 against Contingent Purple, Bubbles' team. She's not even here to gloat this week, so I guess maybe you're a little bit thankful for that, Accel. But we did also see JR Black Pearl did go down 0-2 to the other TD squad. So just focusing in on that first match here, Accel, since we have you here, there's one really big question that I need to ask you. I couldn't help but notice, Accel, that you did allow Bubble to play Lux in game number 1. Would you like to explain yourself, sir?
We have been shuffling our rosters around quite a bit the last few weeks, making sure that we kind of have all the pieces that we need going into playoffs between people's schedules and game counts that they need to have, with work and everything. We just wanted to make sure that we got a little bit of playtime for every single person that's on our roster, including the subs, just to make sure they all have a little bit of synergy and actual, stage game time. Our mid laner felt pretty confident that we'd be able to do just fine into the Lux with a Mel. And for the most part, it was okay. But I think towards the mid game, we got a little shaken up and decided that the best way to deal with the Lux is to stand in a straight line. And so, we definitely got punished for the choices that we made that game.
Yeah, I hear you. That's I feel like that's always kind of what it is, right? Just players will feel confident that they have the answer into whatever champion, whatever one trick their opponent is going to pull out. But in the end, I definitely feel like that decision is one that came back to bite you. Is there anything else about that match in particular, Accel, that you really wanted to touch on, that you really wanted to talk about?
Yeah, we can talk about pretty much any part of that series except for game 3. That was
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have watched it, but if you haven't, you should go back and watch game 3. I think we took one tower and that was pretty much it. We basically got like perfect gamed by them. They played really, really well. Our team was, in my opinion, like it was good because they, after the game, they weren't tilted. They were kind of just like, well, what do we do? Like, how did this happen? How come everything was like just like inches away from us having any kind of success? So I thought it was really good. It's a good game for us to review, and something that we're going to learn from. We've already kind of worked with different members of the team throughout the week. I'm one of 3 coaches. I don't know if I clarified that. So on the actual roster sheet, I think it's just myself and Revan that's listed. But we have Revan, who kind of handles a lot of our drafting. We have Sapsui, who's a little bit more of like on the scouting end. Myself, who does kind of the macro or like, shot calling aspect of the game, the rotations, and just gameplay part of it. And then we have Curry, who I think Complex is familiar with, that kind of tells the rest of us coaches kind of what we're doing wrong. So we have a pretty solid coaching staff. It's just we just have to figure out a way to kind of transcribe all the things that we're thinking about the games as 3 different people into like the players, which has been kind of the challenge here. Aside from that, I thought Contingent Purple was a lot better than we were kind of, I guess, expecting them to be going in. We were, for lack of a better term, a little cocky. We didn't expect to get blown out. We thought it was going to be a close series. We did expect a 2-1, but we expected it going our way. So I think it was justified, the result. We got kind of what we deserved. But I'm really looking forward to this week when Contingent has to play against TD Harmony, which is the other undefeated team. So we kind of have the bottom half of the team, playing each other, and then the top half of the league playing each other, and then us just kind of sitting out watching. So I'm kind of excited for that for this week.
Yeah. We'll definitely get to talking a little bit more about that Contingent Purple versus TD Harmony matchup in just a little while. But Accel, I was wondering if you also wanted to touch on your own matchup that you played against TD Harmony. That obviously wasn't last week; it was 2 weeks ago now. But that is one that you did also unfortunately lose. I don't remember the exact score for that match.
Yeah, we it was also a 2-1. They beat us 2-1. I let Frost win. Obviously, Complex knows Frost needs the ego boost. Small, weak mental. He needs it. Toxin as well. They literally can't not win. Otherwise, they break down. So, no. They're a very good team, but we kind of know what to expect with them. They're a sister team, so we kind of scrim with them regularly between this team and the other teams that we work with. So all the players have known each other for a long time. They've been competing against each other via in-houses, via scrims, whatever it might be. So they kind of all know each other, and that one we were a little bit more prepared for than the Contingent Purple game. So I think that is why I'm so excited, because in my mind, Harmony is definitely what I would consider the number 1 team, and Contingent's probably the number 2 team. But given how bad Contingent blew us out, now I'm not so sure that that's what it is. So we'll see.
Interesting. Well, let's really quickly go ahead and put the standings up on the screen here if we didn't have those up already, which we may have. But we do have, like you were kind of discussing earlier on, Accel, just a moment ago, we do have JR Black Pearl and Tactical Freeze down there at the bottom, both still hunting for their first win. They are going to be facing off as their last matchup of the regular season upcoming here in week number 5 to see who is going to be able to avoid that 0 in the win column. And then, of course, we have the Contingent Purple versus TD Harmony matchup to see who is actually going to be able to close out this regular season undefeated here in the Arbiter League. So let's go ahead and move on from there to a discussion of that top of the table matchup. Definitely going to be really exciting because we have some more detailed stats here for us to take a look at. Accel, you were just saying how you feel like TD Harmony is going to be favored in this matchup. That's your expectation, right? That they're going to be the squad that ends up on top at the end?
That is what I expect. I don't expect that it'll be a blowout. I do think it'll be really, really close, but I expect Harmony to win. They've been playing together for months now, and they're playing across multiple leagues together. So when you have that much time, even like poor drafting, even poor decision making mid game doesn't really mean the end of the game the way that it would for a newer team or teams that are still kind of figuring out their stride. I'm not sure how long Contingent's been together as a full team, But I know that Harmony's been together for literally months, so I
Mm.
expect that they'll have just a little bit more synergy and understanding of kind of player tendencies than Contingent might. With that said, Kaz, who's the support for Contingent, is also the support for one of the teams I coach in Titan, and
Wow.
he's an absolute monster. So, in my opinion, that's where I think Harmony can be taken advantage of is through their bot lane. So, uh, you know, if any team's gonna beat them, it's gonna be Contingent, in my opinion. So we'll kind of
Sure.
see how that works out.
Yeah, I know. If I recall correctly, a Bubble has said before that she is still relatively new to the competitive 5v5 scene. So I don't believe she's been with the squad for that long, and I'm not sure either. As maybe some of the other players on Contingent Purple, excuse me, have played together for a little bit longer. I'm not entirely sure, but it's interesting to hear that you do cite that sort of inbuilt synergy, that the reps that you have together as a team, as maybe being the main edge that TD Harmony have in that matchup. That is something
Right.
that we've discussed here on the show before earlier this season. So, taking a look at these stats, I want to get some other people involved here. Storm, as always, my stats guy. What's jumping out at you between Contingent Purple and TD Harmony here? What do you think is maybe some of the more interesting things to take a look at?
So I think, especially when you're like looking at Arbiter, a really important thing is to pay attention to these KDs. Contingent in their winning games are throwing a lot less deaths around than TD Harmony is, and like looking back at their drafts, a lot of what he's saying, I think this is going to be a close series, and it's going to very much depend on how these drafts play out. I think if you're gonna look to like fist fight anywhere on this map, it either needs to be forcing bot lane to be on something uncomfortable, or you need to use your first rotation bans to try to make mid lane play hand checks. Like
Mm,
I think Bubble's a pretty strong mid laner, especially in Arbiter, but Frost is no slouch either, and he definitely has the champ pool just to like if you can force Bubble to play Akali, and if you feel like you're comfortable with the Akali Yone matchup or the Akali Silas matchup, and you feel like you can flip it, then I think that's what you try to play for. I think if you just take range mage into range mage, you're just playing into what contingents already proved they're at their best on in this league.
hmm
So I think if they can make these be high kill games and high tempo games, it favors TD Harmony's playstyle a lot more. But that's got to be something you approach in draft.
Mm. So you're definitely thinking draft is going to be pretty key for this matchup between these two teams, right, Storm? And then the KDAs in particular, you highlighted as well as just, there's not really that much of a difference. There is a little bit of an advantage in the KDA department for the side of Contingent Purple right now, but, you see that as, something if maybe TD Harmony are going to be able to grab some of these more explosive picks and draft, make the game a little bit more volatile, you see that as a potential avenue for them?
I think it's definitely an avenue just because, like, let's be honest, it's Arbiter League, and sporting a 5.7 KD across your team is honestly impressive. Like, in goal, especially IBSGs, players are going to overextend. They're going to push leads that they shouldn't, like, be pressuring the way they do. And the Fat contingent has done so well this season on not throwing their leads in the games where they're ahead is a really good testament to how they're playing and how well this team's actually operating together. Whereas a bunch
Yeah,
of the other teams, they have mechanical players that can fight for leads, but sometimes in macro situations they're just over pressing and then they're just flipping back and forth where their gold's at. And I think
right.
that's the one thing contingent's done very well this split is with controlling where their gold's at and not flipping it back to the other team. But that's also the
Absolutely.
issue of TD Harmony. TD Harmony is very good at making you do that, just because they're willing to play these champions that can fight you, and they're not going to sit here and just say, "Hey, I'm going to sit back and hit my wave."
Very interesting. Sounds like draft definitely going to be pretty important for this one. Quick aside, Storm, I believe we are still waiting for that 1v1 between you and Bubble. That hasn't happened yet, right?
So, if they want it to happen on stream, we can definitely make that happen. But it did definitely happen off stream.
Oh,
All I'll really go into it is I was asked not to play Syndra. I didn't play Syndra, and someone got solo killed at level 5.
interesting.
So
Interesting.
maybe we'll get one on stream to do it next week when
Okay.
Bubble's not IRL diffed, but
Yeah,
know.
yeah. We can discuss that a little bit more when Bubble is here to be part of the conversation. I just wanted to check in on that
Is
briefly.
Boris solo killed Storm at level 5.
Nice.
Classic Boris. But Complex, I'd like to come to you next year. Complex, do you have these stats pulled up between Contingent Purple and TD Harmony?
Yeah, I do. So I think one of the biggest things I'm seeing here, purely based off stats, as much as I want to root for my org, I guess, another team in my org, I think Contingent Esports is looking a lot better on the vision front. So I mean, just looking across wards placed by team, like 480, and then control wards, they've almost got double across the stats here. So I think the support difference between the two teams is going to be crucial here. Just looking at the stats across the two supports, it looks like Contingent Esports, their support is currently first in stats, and averaging a 71 average vision score across all games, and TD Harmony's support Atomic looks like they're more at a 58. So I think in Arbiter, vision is going to be crucial, definitely in setting up these team bites when the mechanics may not be there. Something you can always rely on is having the vision there, right? So I do want to root for TD Harmony, but I think on the vision front, they need to improve there.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you call out that vision stat complex. That's something else that we talked about last week. Aurel was highlighting the fact that his team was maybe not buying as many wards as they should, and then I think we definitely did see that come into play with that streamed match that we did see on Thursday. And then I believe we also had Accel. You had actually briefly mentioned the Contingent Purple support earlier. You'd called out Fox as being, a really strong player for them, right?
Yeah, so Kaz also plays support for another team that I coach, but in Titan.
Right.
So I've been kind of working with him for like a few weeks now, and he's really good, especially at covering for the mistakes of his lane partners, while also like maintaining tempo and being able to roam effectively. So I think that for support as a role, it's tough to kind of like gauge their skill off of just stats, because a lot of their stats get neutralized by the fact that they are kind of the one left out to dry a lot of the times. But he is super efficient with the gold that he does get. He's really good at kind of setting up his team to be able to succeed with things like vision that Storm is, Storm and Complex and everyone else is kind of mentioning. But more importantly, he, from what I've seen, is really good at playing around enemy vision. So he'll see the kind of like the vision that the enemy's putting down, and rather than just, like most IBSG players, his automatic instinct is, oh, let me burn my control wards, let me burn my sweeper just to clear out this one random vision. He'll just be like, there's a ward there, and now I know I just got to walk around it. Like, let him keep it. It doesn't matter as long as, we're not walking over it. So I think he's a really, really smart player, really, really good, and I expect that he's going to be a big part of why they win if they win. And I do expect them to win at least one game, if not the series.
Yeah, very interesting. Sounds like that support matchup is going to be a key one to watch for sure. But Reps, I wanted to give you the opportunity to chime in here as well. These stats between Contingent Purple and TD Harmony. Is there anything here that you find especially interesting that you'd like to highlight?
No, I mean, I think Storm and Complex kind of highlighted it pretty well. Like the vision score really is kind of what pops out the most. Like having over 130 like awards placed by the team more is actually pretty crazy. I mean, and obviously
Yeah.
vision's king, right? So having better vision just enables you not to run directly into the enemy mid laner and get solo killed. So I mean, it's good. That's
Yeah.
about it.
Definitely. I'm actually kind of noticing the dragons killed stat down there. Contingent Purple actually do have almost double the number of dragons as TD Harmony. So that's something that I think is pretty interesting. Is maybe that's just my jungler brain, right? But I feel like objective's pretty important, right, in the current day and age of League of Legends. But I think that Accel, is there anything else you wanted to add about this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Harmony's not going to care about objectives. That's not really the way that they play the game. Their game is pretty much we play for the item breakpoints, and then we play to fist fight our opponents because we are better at it. And I think Storm touched on that a little bit earlier. That's kind of what they do.
Yeah.
So
Fair
we'll
enough.
see.
We shall see. Let's really quickly take a look at our other matchup that we have upcoming here for week number 5 here in the Arbiter League. It's, of course, going to be Tactical Freeze going up against JR Black Pearl. I remember we had the JR Black Pearl coach on all the way back a couple of weeks ago now for our first Top Hat Lounge episode this season. And I remember him discussing a lot about how, his goal was really trying, this was more of a little bit more of a long-term project where his goal was going to try to build up over the course of the season. He's got some players that are new to competitive on this roster, so he was just really hoping for them to get kind of more comfortable over the course of the season. I don't think we've had the opportunity to talk to anybody from Tactical Freeze, but Accel, what do you know about these squads? You've obviously had the chance to play against both of these teams. What are you expecting from this matchup?
I think as players, Tactical Freeze might be a little bit better, but I know that JR's got like 17 million, high-low coaches that are all actually good at coaching. So for me, it's a little tough. I feel like JR has been ramping constantly the entire split, whereas OSG has high highs and low lows. And if they kind of use the best pieces that they have on their roster all at once, and they're able to kind of just lock in for a game or two, they're really good and they'll blow them out. So it's really a matter of hey, is the individual skill going to win you the game, or is it going to be the team play? If it's team play, I expect that it's more likely JR that's going to take the game. But if we're talking about just coin flipping and who's going to hand stiff the other one, it's probably OSG.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. That'll be definitely an interesting matchup to see who does end up getting that one win before the regular season does conclude. But both teams are going to have an opportunity to compete in the playoffs. We go ahead and pull up the playoff brackets now. That is going to be, of course, the first matchup, regardless of the results of this match that they have against one another here in Week 5. That is going to be the first round of the playoffs as well between Tactical Freeze and JR Black Pearl. The winner of that going to be going up against Contingent Purple. And then it looks like your squad, Accel, TD at Chrono Break's going to be starting in the lower bracket against TD Harmony, I understand.
Yeah, this is kind of unfortunate for us because we have 2 bye weeks in a row. So we have a bye week this week, and then we don't play next week. And then the week after that is right around when we're expecting, my wife to go into labor. So I
wow.
got to kind of prep them as much as we can beforehand.
Yeah.
So we'll see how things go. But I think that whoever wins this week is more likely to lose the week after in playoffs, in my opinion. And I think it's just a matter of the losing team's going to want it a little bit more going into playoffs.
Interesting.
So that's how I feel. Either way, I expect that Contingent will probably beat no matter who they play and end up in the finals. And then us and Harmony, it really just depends on whether we get, I'm gonna tilt after dying one time toxin, or if I'm gonna tilt, or if we're gonna get Frost is gonna carry me through, yet another series toxin. We'll see.
Interesting. Well, Excel, do you have a predict? Do you think your own squad is going to be able to make the run and claim the championship here for this season? Or
Oh, of course. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think we were gonna win.
Absolutely. And it sounds like the timing is going to be a little bit awkward for you with the IRL stuff, of course. But thankfully, you were talking earlier as well about how you have, a pretty expansive coaching staff. So even if you're not going to be able to be quite as involved, then
it'll be fine. My kid's first stream will be watching my team win. No big
amazing.
deal.
That's beautiful. It's getting a tear to my eye right now. Absolutely fantastic. But let's go ahead and ask Storm. What are your playoff predictions here in the Arbiter League? Who do you think is going to end up taking it? Your too early playoff prediction.
If you're asking me who I think it's finals, I think it's Contingent and probably Harmony. I think this last week's going to be a good show of one of two things are going to happen. We're going to see a little bit of an upset in TD Harmony being able to execute a game plan, which I don't want to say I want to happen, but I think it's better if it happens now. But there's a world they play this matchup 3 times because they have to play it this week. And then going into week 2, or week 3, if both teams win out, they have to play it again. To then whoever loses has the option or ability to then play up through lower bracket to then possibly have to play this matchup 3 times.
Yeah, yeah. So I did misspeak a little bit earlier, guys. So it is actually whoever wins this Week 5 matchup between Contingent Purple and TD Harmony. They are going to be the ones that kind of have that matchup against the winner of Tactical Freeze and Jared Black Pearl. So Contingent Purple is not actually locked in that upper part of the bracket. That is depending on the upcoming matchup that they do have against TD Harmony. So I misspoke a little bit there. These, those round 2 matchups, those week 2 matchups are not actually locked in right now. So that is, if that changes anything that you were just saying, Storm.
I mean, it doesn't. It's the same matchups one way or another. I think if Contingent has to play the weaker TD team, whoever it ends up being, they've already beat Chrono Break, from what I remember. Like TD Harmony's kind of the last hurdle, and it kind of alludes back to what I was saying earlier. If they can attack this at draft and give themselves like proper win cons into what Contingent is shown they're comfortable on, I think it'll be a close series. But I feel like if they just go in with this saying, "Hey, we're gonna play our game and hope our game's enough," I think you're gonna lose. I mean, it just is what it is.
Yeah,
I gotta stick up for my fellow podcaster and bubble.
totally.
But I take Contingent winning this league. I have been mostly impressed in a lot of their games, a lot of the wins, especially in their last series. That game 3, playing a perfect game,
Yeah.
having to play Lissandra into Galio. I am a certified hater of that matchup. If you
That's
ever
a
lock
tough one.
Lissandra in, I'm insta locking Galio and I'm fist fighting you from level 3 on. So to come out of that game 6-0 and 6, I think by the end of it, well, bubble ended. I think it's pretty doomed.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
In
Contingent has looked for sure.
Yeah.
Complex, what are your thoughts? Do you want to make a too early playoff prediction for the Arbiter League here? Who do you think is going to take this league?
Yeah, so I think next week. So I completely agree with Storm, right? I think it's going to be Contingent and TD Harmony in finals. I think next week when they play each other, I think Contingent's going to take it. But I think TD Harmony is going to learn off of that. And then I think we're going to pull out the Garen in finals, and it's going to be over for the enemy team. So yeah, the Garen is just too good. A lot of people sleep on it. My main, and I will stomp on it. So that's my hot take. I think TD Harmony is going to pull out the whole bracket.
Very interesting. Yeah, some Demacian justice potentially going to be served there. Rept, what are your thoughts? Do you want to make a too early playoff prediction for the Arbiter League?
I'm kind of just gonna say probably Contingent Esports wins. I don't think anybody's gonna take advantage of kind of what Storm said earlier about just running that Akali matchup and just kind of winning. But I mean, I don't know. Harmony Complex just said that he's gonna run Garen and just run the entire league. So maybe I could be swayed that way, but that would be mine.
Yeah, I mean, Garen definitely can pop off in those lower elos, so could happen. Definitely could see that come through, but Contingent have looked really, really powerful. One more quick look at the upcoming matchups for this last week of the regular season, guys. Contingent Purple is so I don't know if this graphic is actually quite right. I think it should be Contingent Purple versus TD Harmony, right, instead of Tactical Freeze there. But those are going to be the matchups. It's going to be Contingent Purple versus TD Harmony. It's going to be Jared Black Pearl versus Tactical Freeze. And then, of course, as previously mentioned, Chrono Break there on the bye. Going to have to wait a couple of weeks before they are going to be playing again. Be interesting to see, Accel, if your squad is going to be able to make that late end of season push to get into the finals and potentially take the win here in season 2. Let's go ahead
Only
and move on
3-0s. Only 3-0s. We'll see you guys in finals.
Sounds like a plan. Let's go ahead and move on now. We are going to temporarily skip over the Sentinel League, guys, because my Crusader representative rep does have a hard out this evening, so we're going to go ahead and do Crusader next. So taking a look first at our match results here for Week 4 of Crusader for Rivals Week. We do have your squad repped the Syndicate Reds did go down against Storm squads. Despite Storm's connection issues, him and the rest of the squad were able to take the 2-1 victory over you. So let's hear from Storm first. We discussed this matchup a little bit. I guess that maybe wasn't on stream yet, though. That was off stream. So if you want to, just go over again your perspective in this matchup against Syndicate.
So going into this, our jungler definitely had a lot of opinions on your guys' jungler going into it. We pretty much just kind of looked at it and went, Mbessa Flex seems kind of annoying. +2. I would honestly, I think Mbessa was the only real ban we overly cared about. And we're very confident in our own mechanics to just say, hey, I don't need to beat you in lane by 7 minutes. Like, I will just out team fight you. Game 1, running the Quirky Jinx with the Vlad. I mean, it's just bread and butter of there's a really strong team dive top laner that can pepper people and blow people up, and Jinx gets 1 reset, and Jinx gets to run rampant. As it was dropped in the clips highlight, that's what happens. They overextend, Ornn gets caught, Vlad gets a flank off a TP, and then it's just to the races. Game 2, I don't know who rep paid to actually make my router murder itself, but props, I guess. I don't know. And then game 3, I went back and listened to the cast, and we're getting hard flamed for draft. And I get on paper it looks bad until you actually look into it. And I think this is a big issue that teams in every division have when they're drafting. If anyone ever plays Magic, I don't, but I get the references enough to kind of just explain it. Of our draft looks weird because we have no front line, but we're also playing a bruiser-ish top with triple enchanters, so we have tons of fake front line. And on top of it, there's no lane that loses. Top goes even in that
Okay.
matchup.
Yeah.
Mid doesn't lose because Karma's just an innate lane bully. And so I feel like we got our game plan pretty much every game.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that, Storm. I definitely think there is something to be said for winning lane matchups, but I do also think that if you ended up falling significantly behind with that draft, it could have potentially been very, very difficult for you. But let's go ahead and hear Rep's side of things. Apparently there were some feelings about your jungler, is what I'm hearing. And then some allegations about some tampering with the internet. How would you like to respond?
Yeah, I mean, why would I tamper with internet if I'm playing Mel? I mean, that champ's just brain dead. You just win anyway. So that'll be my first one there. But no, I mean, jungler, I think Necro is kind of, I mean, he's role swapping over to jungle. It's his secondary role. But if I remember correctly, game 2, solo killed Kindred, ran that game. I don't know. I would say in reality, no Phoenix, they're pretty one-dimensional. I mean, you see that the second game, they don't draft their Let's Funnel Mustard comp, and then Mustard can't carry them. They all just fall apart, and they all int. So in reality, I feel like if they don't do this weird triple enchanter nonsense, they just lose. And then as the season goes on, teams are just going to catch on to it, and if that's all you can play, you're just going to lose in other finals. So.
Interesting. To be fair, Mustard didn't have 3 enchanters in the first game, only the one, the Morgana in the jungle. But
Yeah,
I hear you that it could be that could be potentially a point of weakness for Phoenix if teams are able to figure out how to consistently focus Mustard and keep Mustard down. Then maybe that would be some cause for concern.
I just don't understand this slander.
Well, I'm sure if
I had the highest damage split in the league for the first 2 weeks, and we're the Mustard team. It's crazy.
I just know that my team has said that Storm was the least impactful person. That's not me. That's that's. Just,
I am playing on a Verizon hotspot. What do you want from me?
No, I mean, in reality, I am a little upset that you did have those connection issues, because in reality, I don't ever want to play versus somebody who's handicapped. I'd rather just play versus you, and then if you win, you win. To be honest, but no, I mean, I think y'all are a really solid team. All memes aside.
I was wondering if maybe we could get a couple other people to chime in here on that Game 3 draft. I feel like that might be interesting. So, guys, if you're okay finding that, it's of course in the Crusader section. You can find it in the win screens there for the Crusader League, or if our amazing producer would like to just pop that into the live chat for us, we can have our guests take a look at that. But yeah, it was definitely a very interesting draft complex. It was the Morgana, I believe, and then there was a Karma mid, and then the Vladimir top, and then what was the support again? Oh, here we go.
Zillion.
Yeah, Zillion support. Complex, what do you think about that Game 3 draft for NO Phoenix? That they did manage, as you can see, to pilot to a victory.
Yeah, I mean, way too much AP, it seems like. If you don't funnel all of your gold into the Twitch, I feel like it goes pretty bad for you. Karma mid can be good as long as you have something that does damage top right, and you've got a Vlad there. So not really too worried about utility mid. Um, but yeah, it's if Twitch gets behind, it seems like it's going to be a pretty bad game for No Phoenix. I don't know.
Interesting. What do you think about what Storm was saying about how they were just kind of focused on the winning lane matchups and being able to carry the game through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, right? Like as long as you can counterpick, it makes your lane pretty easy, especially if you can have a jungle player on that. But yeah, like I said, it feels like if this game is more competitive, it feels like the Cassante becomes unkillable, and it's a pretty hard game to win.
Rep, do you have any thoughts on this Game 3 draft? Anything you wanted to add to the conversation?
I mean, honestly, the Karma pick was Giga Brain. We kind of suspected that it was gonna go support. And then playing the Akali Karma matchup is pretty rough. It's pretty rough because after Morgana ganks mid, kills me, my lane is like over, and I just can't play the game. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the draft was it was okay. I mean, it's probably just exactly what they want to play.
And I meant to come to Accel as well. Accel, if you wanted to add anything about this draft as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Storm was saying at the beginning, which is that they were getting a lot of like flack for not drafting frontline, but you don't really need HP if you can create effective HP, which is what you do with shields anyways. So having like double, triple enchanters, just a bunch of people to basically make your slightly tankier people tanky enough, like the job is still done, right? You don't have to do it the traditional way as long as you can get it done. I really like their draft. I My concern with it is that if Twitch, if Akali somehow got out of lane, not, getting slammed, if she somehow got a bit of gold at all and one shot the Twitch, like it becomes very difficult for them to deal with the Cassante building full MR. So that would have been, my concern with the draft. But I feel like they've got enough, sustain throughout the fight to stall out a fight where Twitch is like out of it. So
Absolutely.
I think their draft is just fine, to be honest.
Well, it definitely worked out for them. After that 2-1 victory, New Origin Phoenix Storm, your squad is now the only remaining undefeated squad in the Crusader League. So very, very exciting. We could pull back up now the results from last week really quickly, the Rivals Week results. Storm, were there any other results here that you thought were especially interesting that you'd like to point out?
So, with the rest of our results in this, a couple kind of stick out to me. I'm glad to see Uncaged starting to pick up these wins. Um, Poison Panthers going 2-0 into Tilt. That was a matchup I can't say I would overly sided one way or the other on, but I was expecting Tilt with a couple of the players they have to at least take a game. But it seems like Poison Panthers just put up a pretty solid performance. So it's nice to see that team ramping up. And then obviously the boys over at New Origins on both Goon Squad and Enterbots. It obviously we've been talking about that matchup over there in house wise for the last week or two, and I personally had Goon Squad winning, and I guess people over there just don't like me to be right. I don't know, but they were both banger games. Game Case or Zelda guy put up very good performances in both games 2 and 3. Um, and sadly, it just didn't play out for Goon Squad the way they needed it to. I think both junglers kind of had bad bad games in the series, and it was just Interbots, I guess, just having more games together, more scrim time maybe, was able to pilot those mid games a little bit safer and get away from what Goon Squad was looking to do with a lot of their pick tools.
Well, definitely glad to hear that New Origin Civil War was a banger. Very, very nice. Rep, anything else you want to comment on as far as last week's results are concerned? Anything you'd like to point out for us?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the Poison Panthers tilt was actually like super surprising. I felt like Glorious and Axe could and Gumi would probably carry it to win, but I mean, I do hope that Poison Panthers beats NO Phoenix, so then maybe we can have a crazy schedule. And then Goon Squad as well. I have no idea how Goon Squad is playing like so poorly. It seems like I thought they were going to come in probably as one of the strongest teams over in our division, but doesn't really seem like it so far. So those would be my two.
Yeah, Goon Squad, middle of the pack for now, sitting at 2-2, halfway through the regular season here, exactly at 500. So maybe they will ramp up here in the back half of the season. We'll have to wait and see. But let's go ahead and move on now. We can take a quick look at some stats here between New Origin, Phoenix, and Syndicate Reds. This match that you guys just played this past week. Are there any stats? Let's just come to our other guests for this one. So, Accel, taking a look at these stats here between these two squads, what do you feel is especially interesting?
I'm actually interested by the difference in game count. I know, like, to me, it seems like Syndicate having to play more games. So even though they, it shows that their KDA is not as great. I think it just means that they're a little bit better at fighting. Whereas Phoenix is playing it a little bit more safe and controlled, which I think if Syndicate's able to kind of like get them into a scrappier game, it's going to be more favored towards them. So that's the kind of way I'm looking at it. There is 100 more deaths on the side of Syndicate, though. So,
a lot of deaths.
yeah.
Stats look uglier and uglier the farther you go down.
So that's kind of what I'm noticing. Is it just seems to me like Syndicate's a little bit more of a brawler team than Phoenix is, which could mean that that's their angle for finding success is pull them into their territory, but we'll see.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Complex, you have any thoughts on these stats between the teams of our other guests here?
Yeah, I mean, biggest thing he pointed out the deaths, 100 extra deaths. I don't know if they had a crazy like 3 games or something that like somehow had 100 deaths between the 3 of them, but I highly doubt it. It seems like Syndicate is kind of just linking to stat check and kind of just fight their way to victory. Which I mean, if it works, it works. But yeah, other than that, I mean, it seems like from objective control, it's pretty similar. More minions on the side of Syndicate, but I think that's given the extra games played. So nothing too out of the ordinary there.
Yeah, makes sense. I am noticing that Rep's squad, Syndicate, does have a little bit of an edge in terms of the vision game. It does have more wards placed, so there is that. But let's go ahead now and take a look at the standings for sector number 1. Storm, as already mentioned, your team obviously sitting up there at the top, looking pretty with 4-0 in the standings here. Are there any other teams that you'd like to point out, or who do you think maybe is your biggest contender here in sector 1 at this point in the season?
Right now, I'm unironically actually really looking forward to our other kind of in-house match against Interbots. Obviously, we scrimmed Goon Squad quite a few times, so like we know their win cons, and obviously knowing that roster well enough, I know theirs as well. But we just haven't did any in-houses with them due to us being in the same sector, and I definitely think they're cleaning up a lot of their early game and early season mistakes, where I think Striker and Mustard both are very good AD carries. That Mustard has just kind of edged out the lead in a lot of games we've played against each other. Um, I, I'll take it on the chin. And in houses, I somehow sprint it into game case on repeat. Actually, hasn't
Interesting.
happened in a series, but in houses, I am like 1-7 on average. I swear.
All
But he
right.
also takes exhaust mid, so
Well, that's just cheating at that point, right? I mean,
Fact.
that's just unfair.
facts. No honor. No
Um,
honor.
that does look like it's going to be the Week 6 matchup, that battle between New Origin Phoenix and New Origin Interbots. So very excited to talk to you about more about that matchup next week, Storm. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look at the Sector 2 standings. Rept, what are your thoughts? You know, not undefeated anymore, obviously. You are now tied with the Choco Pancakes there at 3-1. Is that the squad as you really see as your main competition here in Sector 2, or what are your thoughts?
So honestly, I'm not too sure. I mean, we're the ones who handed them their loss. So yeah, but
Yeah.
I would say they're probably like the closest team to us that we've played so far. Our schedule from here on out is relatively pretty free, except for when we have to play Poison Panthers. So yeah, but yeah, I would say Elysium Chocolate Pancakes is probably the one, and maybe No Goon Squad if they really start ramping up.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Prometheus also did pick up a 2-0 last week, so you know there's that. They might be ramping up as well, but definitely when I did have the chance to cast them, there were a couple of significant issues that they did need to resolve. So we'll see as the season progresses who is really going to be able to challenge you here in Sector 2. But go ahead and moving on now to a look at the week ahead. We are going to have Storm, your squad, New Origin Phoenix, is going up against the Poison Panthers here in week number 5. How are you feeling heading into that matchup?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty good. I've scrimmed this team with a different team I'm on, and they were competitive scrims. And my NO Phoenix squad's just a lot better than that team in general. We just have a lot stronger of individual players. Um, so I think it's gonna be 2-0, but I mean at this point, Syndicate's been the only team to take a game off of us, and
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I would replay that series again, and I think 3 out of 5 times, if not 4 out of 5 times, it's a 2-0. But
Oh,
I think there'll be some
yeah,
exciting matchups with Supporta and Ramen, especially in top side with Burger. I think is their top laner, and Zerv, and see what they do to try to knock us off our game plan and draft this week.
sure, sure. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. It sounds like you might need that momentum from your matchup against the Poison Panthers to sort of carry into that week 6 matchup against the Interbots. So we'll see if you are going to be able to get that momentum rolling. But taking a look at the matchup for you this week, Rep, you're going to be going up against the Outlaws Prometheus. I just kind of touched on them a moment ago as a squad that has had its struggles, but did pick up the victory this past week. I assume you're feeling pretty confident heading into that one.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we're really too worried about it. I know they've had a bunch of like roster changes, so that'll be interesting. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're not too concerned about it.
Are you predicting a 2-0 victory for your squad in that match as well?
Yeah, well, I think it'll probably be a 2-1. We're
Okay.
relatively
Okay.
scrappy and high in variance. Where
We
as
noticed, yeah.
seen, yeah, as seen playing the versus Storm's team, we'll just give the AD carry 3 kills, and the game's very hard. So
Hmm. Well, that'll be a fun one to
Akali
look
on
out
the
for
deck,
as well,
brother.
for sure. What was that, Storm?
Said leave that Akali on the deck, brother.
yeah,
Ooh.
true.
Picking
Uh,
Akali in a game that gives True Vision is crazy.
Either one of you guys, any of these other matchups that you wanted to touch on at all? Sounds like we can go ahead and move on. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some stats here. We have some stats between the Expired Bandits and the Snow Reapers. Oh, very interesting. The Expired Bandits currently sitting at 500 right now over here in Sector 1. The Snow Reapers still hunting for their first win, unfortunately, at 0-4 right now. But that is going to be one of the matchups that we have upcoming here in week number 5. Let's come to our other guests really quickly first for this one. So Complex, taking a look at some more stats here. Do you think that the Snow Reapers are going to have any kind of an angle to get in there against the Bandits, maybe pick up their first win in this matchup? What do you think?
I'd love to say yes, but unfortunately, I don't think so.
Mm.
No hate against the OSG organization as a whole, but like it seems like pretty much across all leagues here, they're kind of bottom of the barrel. So would love to see them get a win somewhere, but a lot of them. I mean, the the KDA here isn't too promising.
It doesn't inspire joy. No.
Not too much there. They almost have double the deaths of their kills. So, yeah, that's a bit unfortunate.
It is. It is a bit unfortunate. Accel, any thoughts on these stats? Definitely seems like pretty tough time that the Snow Reapers have had so far.
Yeah, I mean, the stats make it seem like they're really good at getting gold, but their kills, deaths, objectives leads me to believe that they're not doing a good job of using their gold. So I'm thinking that the team isn't bad. They're just not, I guess, like they're not learning how to play the game effectively. They're not being told or taught how to utilize the leads that they might be building. Again, I don't have like full insight into every single game that these guys are playing. I don't know what their scrims are like. I don't know what their coaching sessions are like. It just doesn't seem like they're really using their skill into like transitioning that into like winning games. It seems like they're getting their leads and then just kind of just like fizzling out.
Right. Right. Definitely. Certainly, I'm sure that it seems like there's a lot of things the Snow Reapers do need to be tightening up to try to make a little bit of a run here. If at all possible, towards the back half of the season. Storm, have you scrimmed against either of these teams at all? Do you have any thoughts on this matchup?
So, a little bit. My fun thing to do is on my other team is randomly possibly snipe LXC teams and scrim them on my other team, just to give myself like a
Interesting.
little bit
Okay.
of insight into
Yeah.
whether or not I think they're real or not. And
Ace cheating.
unironically, OSG, I believe the owner's Taco. Ooh, I could be wrong, but he reached out to me to scrim one of their teams, and I got promised that it was going to be, or it's Novocaine. Okay, I think Taco may have been overseeing one of the teams then, but he reached out to me to scrim them, and it was 3-0. Um, I I I feel hard on this team just because like you look at the OP.GGs and you go through this, and they're definitely playing in a league that they have to overperform to be competitive in.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that puts them in a hard spot, but they're out here and they're playing them. And obviously, they're not just getting completely ran over in a lot of these games. Looking at their stats, looking at your average game times, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
league has hit a point where they're trying to slow the game down again. So game times are designed to be longer, but still averaging a 31-minute game time into a lot of these teams, they're not just rolling over and taking it. They are standing up and fighting, and they're
Mm.
doing some things. So I think this is a really good learning experience for a lot of people on this roster. Because there's very much a world where maybe they play this split throughout Crusaders, see where they all need to improve, and then next split they either run it back into Crusader, or depending what the games look like and the roster stays together, maybe they're a really good Sentinel team. But I think it's definitely hard.
Hmm.
Just going into it, just because your entire roster's having to play against Emerald, high Emerald players to D4 peak, and you're fighting in a weight class that's really hard just to out hands check or out knowledge check a lot of
Yeah.
these teams.
Definitely credit to them for challenging themselves, in that case, right? And it certainly can be the case where if you play against a higher level of competition, that can allow you to improve at a quicker rate, right? So I think we can't rule out that possibility. I like what you're talking about, Storm, pointing out the fact that, the game time is decently long, given the fact that they haven't been able to win a match yet. They're able to at least hang in there in a lot of these games. And Accel, of course, pointing out as well the fact that they're able to at least earn a good amount of gold in these games as well. It seems like just not really able to utilize it as effectively as they need to actually be picking up these wins. But Rep, you're the last person that needs to chime in on this conversation. Do you have any thoughts on this matchup? Anything you'd like to highlight for us?
No, I think it'll be interesting. I think the OSG kind of complex brought it up. The org itself, I think they're I think they're still ramping up in totality, so it'll be nice to kind of see all of their players get this, experience, especially Storm hit with it. There's a lot of, players who have been in this Emerald community for a while that are definitely just good players. So they're punching up, and I mean, they have one team win, so I mean, they've at least done something. I would say, maybe prioritizing like their macro on towers might be a good step in the right direction to start getting some tempo on their side. But other than that, I think it'll be a fun little match.
You think they have a chance against the Bandits?
I mean, anything can happen. I don't, just looking through the OP.GGs on paper, I would say most likely not. But I would be pleasantly, surprised if they did, right? So
Sure, of course, of course. That is, of course, going to be our streamed match for the Crusader League here in week number 5. So be sure to tune in for that, guys, on Wednesday to see if the Snow Reapers can pull off the upset. But last order of business here for the Crusader Leagues, we do have a clip submission. I believe this is from the match that you two played against each other, right, Storm and Rept?
Maybe.
nah, I think we could skip it. No.
Uh-oh. Oh, I don't think that's going to be an option, unfortunately. Let's take a look. So, oh yeah, Rep, you're just
doesn't
getting,
matter if you miss rockets if you get Sheen procs. That's all
you
I
just
know.
yeah, hit him with some auto attacks. Simple as that. Simple as that. So, and I think we actually did discuss this clip a little bit before going live. Rep, you want to go over that again from your perspective? What happened here?
Yeah, I was pretty much told that we need help through go mid, and kind of that it was safe through bot jungle. Obviously it wasn't, so that was just a greedy path by me. I mean, if my team needs me to rotate over, I just need to go the long way. Especially with where we're at in this game, we're definitely not on the front foot, right? But yeah, Quirky is a good champ. I mean, I like it.
Yeah.
My brain
yeah.
with this was I just have to Valk in your face and pray you whiff your CC ability, and if you whiff it, you're just dead.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be real with
Yep.
you. I was a little frazzled. I didn't expect a Corki just to be sitting at my my blue bush, to be honest.
Yeah, when did that ward come down? So, oh, that was Storm's ward, obviously. Yeah, okay. And then, yeah, it was a pretty nice Valkyrie. I guess that wasn't a reaction so much as a prediction, right? You knew that Rept was going to try to throw out the fear to get away. So you
Oh
just,
yeah, my
in
brain goes,
anticipation of
there's
that.
no way I'm allowed to stand here without dying if they have vision. And then
Mhm.
as soon as he walked up, I went, he 100% freaks out when I just combo out of this bush, and I just Valk and hope he just
Yeah.
panic presses buttons.
I mean, Corki has a lot of burst, right? So regardless, Rept wasn't going to have a lot of time there to try to react to get away. Complex, anything you wanted to comment on in this clip?
Yeah, I mean, around 6K at this point, it's a bit rough. You kind of just can't walk there, right? He touched that on. I touched on that a little bit, but like, yeah, it's a tough one. Corky's winning that most of the time.
For sure, especially in melee range like that. Corki is definitely going to have an edge. Accel, anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean Storm said it. Who needs rockets if you have Sheen procs?
Easy peasy. Sheen OP, am I right? Okay, so that's going to pretty much do it, I think, for our conversation about the Crusader League. And Rept, I know you are going to have to go pretty soon, so we're going to go ahead and give you the opportunity now. If you have any shout outs for the stream, anything you'd like to share?
No, I just appreciate y'all, inviting me on and having fun. Storm, thanks for, the back and forth banter. Hopefully, it's all in good fun for content. I do know that if we go into playoffs and fight you or finals or whatever, Sin will win. So, but shout out to my team, kind of ragtag group of for fun players, trying to take it a little serious this season. But appreciate all of you.
Very nice. Appreciate you as well. Thank you for joining us. Whenever you do have to leave, just feel free to go ahead. We completely understand. And then Accel, I guess you are going to have to head out soon as well. Would you like to share any shout outs with the stream?
No, I just want to shout out kind of all of the teams in Arbiter. I feel like they're all kind of doing a lot better than things were last split. Though the records might not indicate it, it's a lot closer than I thought last split was. Last split was you have a top heavy team, like you have like two teams that are definitely gonna make it like deep, and then you have like the other teams just kind of in the league. So this time it really feels like the lower teams are ramping up, the higher teams are kind of plateauing. So I'm really excited to see how playoffs turns out.
Yeah, I am as well. Definitely excited to see if your team can
Also,
take that level up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also leaving before we cover Sentinel, but shout out to One Hand. I taught him everything he knows. If he says otherwise, he's lying.
Okay, fantastic. I'm glad you got that in. But yes, thank you guys both very much for being here. Really great to hear from both of you. So, and same deal for you as Accel. Whenever you have to go, feel free to just go ahead and head out. And again, appreciate you joining us tonight.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us.
Of course. We are now going to go ahead and move into a little bit of a conversation about the Sentinel League. Jumping back over here. So, Complex, you're going to be our lead guest for this conversation. As you just really quickly go up here, pull up those Sentinel slides. All right. And Complex, you are, of course, on TD Blessed. So taking a look here. Looks like you did pick up the 2-0 last week over Brom Lives Matter. Is that right?
Yeah, I think BLM was supposed to be a better team kind of in this league, but unfortunately last week they didn't have the best of showings. I think both games were pretty close to 30-minute wins, and they were pretty one-sided. I think they have picked up a couple wins. They're on the opposite sector, so don't know too much about them, but I think they're doing well, but definitely did not have the best of showings last week. So
Yeah, I know Righteous, I believe when we've had him on the past couple of weeks, he has not had a very high opinion of Brom Lives Matter, and in fact, he's had quite a low opinion of Sector 2 just in general. So that is, something to keep in mind. Were there any other matchups here, though, from Rivals Week Complex that you'd like to point out for us that you'd like to highlight?
yeah, I think one of the big ones was Plasma Wolves versus OTLO. Plasma Wolves is the one team we dropped a week to. They're a good team, but I do also think we should have won that week, and we just didn't have a good showing that week. OTLO, don't know too much about them, but they are the only last 4-0 team in the league. So definitely excited to play them if we get to see them in playoffs. But yeah, we got to get there first. So
Yeah, definitely. Looks like that undefeated team, OTLO, they are going to have their Week 5 matchup going to be against Dropping Point Hellfire. Dropping Point Hellfire still looking for that first win on their side. So Obsidian looking like they're going to continue that undefeated streak most likely through this upcoming week of games as well. Let's go ahead and move on. We're going to take a look at the stats from this past week. I guess this is probably the streamed game that we had for week number 4, right? Between the Plasma Wolves and OTL Obsidian. Obviously, OTL Obsidian able to pick up the win here. What's really interesting to you, Complex, in these stats?
yeah, so KD is definitely lower on the Plasma Wolf side. The important thing that I see from Plasma Wolves, I think they're better on the macro side. I think when it comes to the micro and kind of like 1v1s and lane mechanics, they're not the best, but going to objectives, being at objectives, and fighting around those objectives, they're definitely better at, and winning those team fights, they're better at as well. Yeah, I think other than that, definitely more control wards bought out by Plasma Wolves here, but I think from a vision score, OTLO is actually doing better from that front. So I think most of these stats are pretty wash between the two teams.
Yeah, it's interesting the fact that the stats do seem to be, in a lot of regards, actually quite close, despite the fact that OTL Obsidian have had such a better performance overall, just, looking at the standings. Well, I guess the Plasma Wolves have been doing pretty well as well, only losing that one game. So there is that as well. But Storm, anything that you find especially interesting here that you'd like to point out?
So I actually casted this match on stream.
Oh,
So
perfect.
I got to watch all of it, and this was actually a really back and forth series, like that the 2-0 wouldn't show you. Um, Outlaws in like both games had really weak points of the map at one point. In game 1, the Darius is like dying in lane 3+ times, burning sums on repeat, and then game 2, the Swain is perma getting caught and blown up by Echo, and I don't know if I like cast or curse them, Plasma Wolves or not. But I really went, the only way back into this game is they take one really dumb team fight and Sivir gets shutdowns, and then magically this gold flips. And then out of nowhere, Swain is flashing forward in blue side
no.
jungle. Echo's getting caught over a wall by Sivir Boomerang. And I'm like, oh no, it's happening.
It's all your fault, Storm. What did you do?
I definitely thought it was going game 3 whenever I was watching it as well. That was a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, very interesting.
Both
Yeah,
of these
taking a
teams
look
are
at them.
definitely strong in the like leads of their sectors. I think if either one of these teams just cleans up a little bit of their mid game mistakes, I think they're going to be by far the best two teams in this division.
Definitely, yeah. They have both been having a reasonably good showing so far. But we probably go ahead and move on now to our next little bit of info here for the Crusade, or the Sentinel League rather. So we do have our Sector 1 standings we can go ahead and take a look at. So the Plasma Wolves, as we can see here, we were just discussing, they have been performing relatively well so far. 3-1 right now in the standings. Lots of 3-1 teams, though, over in Sector 1, including Righteous's squad, the Rivals, sitting at 3-1 also. So from your perspective, Complex, who do you feel like are maybe the front runners over there in Sector 1?
Yeah, so that's kind of the story of Sector 1, right? We got a 5-way tie for first.
Yeah.
It's a bit rough. I definitely think Sector 1 is the better sector between the two. Front runners between those 5, though, definitely think TD Blessed and Plasma Wolves. My hot takes for Sector 1 here is that TFF is not a good team, and we should clean up pretty easily this week. And also Rivals, they're all frauds. And they like to do some content in our org, and they get ranked higher than us. But the second we play them next week, it's going to be pretty over. So.
Wow, that is going to be very exciting. Definitely looking forward to that matchup. So you're playing up against the Rivals
TFF
next
this week.
Oh yeah. You're playing against
TFF this week, and then Rivals next week.
I see. Yeah, very, very exciting. Doesn't look like we're gonna have either one. Oh, you are gonna be on the stream here for week 5 in your matchup against the Chill guys. So that's gonna be very fun to watch out for sure. But
yeah, you'll see a couple
sector.
solo kills in the top lane from my side. So
I'm gonna hold you to it. That sounds good to me. But let's take a look at the Sector 2 standings as well. You know, obviously, Obsidian, as we already discussed, out in front there. If there's going to be any squad in this other sector complex that you think might be able to challenge them, who would you maybe be looking at?
Yeah, so Sector 2 OTLO is definitely the front runner. I thought OSG Sub-Zero was going to have a showing, but I think they actually lost a match this week that I thought they should have performed. Yeah, they played TFF this week and got 2-0'd. I thought they were going to be a bit better in that matchup, and it doesn't seem like they were. From that standpoint, RAR is supposed to be better. They have some really good players on their team, but unfortunately, they just haven't been able to pull it together. They may make a crazy run towards the end of the season, but I kind of don't see it happening right now. But other than that, I think all the other teams are pretty much a wash.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe Sub-Zero is going to be able to get a little bit more on top of things, you know, as we move into the second half of the season here. Or maybe somebody else will be able to rise up to challenge OTL Obsidian, rather, in that sector number 2. It's definitely clearly Obsidian on top for now, at least. Let's go ahead and look at our upcoming matchups. You already were hinting at this a little bit, Complex. Your squad going up against the Chill guys, and you expect that to be pretty one-sided in your favor. Is that right?
Yeah, we definitely expect a 2-0 here. I think we from a stat standpoint, we're just better in almost every lane, I think. and I think most solo lanes will be able to get a lot of gold funneled through them. And then I think once we get to team fights, we should perform better. So I think that should be pretty one-sided towards the TD Bless side. On the other matchups here, I think Rivals versus Plasma Wolves will be a good matchup. Hopefully, Rivals will be able to prove me wrong and have a better showing versus one of the better teams in our sector. Other than that, I think those are really the two games to watch here.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree. Those are going to be some really interesting results to watch out for. Let's go ahead and take a look now at some stats between your squad complex and your opponents here for week number 5, the Chill Guys. And we'll come to Storm first. We haven't heard from you in a minute here. What's jumping out at you in these stats?
I mean, both these teams are all at 8 games. Obviously, TD's playing a little bit more of a scrap heavy with higher kills, higher deaths. I think the bigger thing here is going to be when you look at this assist column. TD's 103 assists higher while having a shorter game time.
Yeah.
That's kind of an egregious number. It makes it seem like TFF is kind of just playing to win throughout their lanes, and then hopefully can just kind of wallet smack at 15 minutes because they have a gold lead. Whereas TD very much seems to be taking better team fights, probably playing more stable lane phases, which is kind of the kryptonite to what TFF looks like they're trying to do. Um, you see it a lot in like our games. Like we're playing, especially like if I'm playing Corki, I'm not playing this for lane. I'm playing this champ
Right.
because at 15 minutes I have an item, you have an item, and I'm a better team fighter. And that seems to be. I can't say I've looked at very many of the drafts in Sentinel to see if that's what these teams look like. Complex can probably vouch to say one side or not, but having 103 assists in the same totals of games is like actually an obscene stat that's allowed.
Yeah, really interesting. You know, that significantly higher assist number definitely does indicate, I think, like you're just saying, Storm, that TD Blessed tend to, maybe group a little bit more, a little bit earlier, tends to play around each other a little bit more, whereas Chill Guys maybe have a little bit more of a focus, towards the laning phase and trying to, outplay in these 1v1, 2v2 situations. Complex, do you feel like that's maybe a relatively fair assessment of each of these teams? What are your thoughts on for either side?
Yeah, so how I'm scouting TFF, it seems like that's pretty true. So they're looking for trying to win through the 1v1s, 2v2s. But it seems like a lot of their wins are coming from late game mistakes by the other team. And I think that's kind of why you see the average game time so high. A lot of these games they're playing, they just don't know how to end. It's like 35, 40-minute wins. And I think our big goal is going to be getting ahead early and just finishing the game before 30 minutes and just calling it. So.
Just looking to make it a quick one. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like if the Chill Guys aren't able to get that going in the lanes, then it sounds like that might be very doable for you to try to close things out earlier and just not really give them any windows to get in. Very interesting. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss? Discuss about this upcoming matchup complex?
No, I think it'll be a good one, but like I said, I think it's going to be pretty one-sided. So.
All right. Well, we'll see if you are going to be able to get that done. We do also have a clip submission from the Crusader League or the Sentinel. I keep getting them mixed up. The Sentinel League from this past week. And this was your match complex that you played against Braum Lives Matter. One hand picking up the pentakill, it sounds like. Let's take a look.
Peep the amazing Malphite ultimate. Out of yours truly.
Heyo.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, the Nocturne desperately trying to get the Lulu there, but yeah, just kind of letting the Twitch take him down. And then One Hand just needing that one more kill for the Penta. Sneaks around. Very, very sneaky rat. Nicely done. Deserved
That
Penta.
TD Masters.
Yeah,
The
so
ninja, yeah.
he ended up going 17-1 that game.
I believe it. I believe it. Yeah, was this game 1 or game 2?
This was game 2. We for some reason our coach did not want to blue side first pick the Twitch, but they left it up and we're just like, pick it, let's go. And then for some crazy reason they gave us Lulu. I don't know why you're giving us Twitch Lulu, but
Yeah, it looks pretty good. No doubt about it. Congrats to One Hand for picking up the pentakill. I think that's pretty much it for our discussion of the Sentinel League, unless there's anything else you wanted to go over, Complex?
no, I think I touched on the big point that most of Sector 1 is just frauds. And they're only 3-1 because they're playing bad teams. I don't know.
Yeah, and you highlighted
I
your own
don't
squad.
know if
in
I
this...
agree with you on that one there, Buck.
Oh, go ahead and respond, Storm.
I mean, looking at all these matchups, obviously, since we have these crossover weeks every week, the only Sector 2 team to win so far has been OTL and then what?
Oh no, I
Erwin
definitely
Ultra?
agree. I think all of Sector 2 is bad except for OTLO, and I think all of Sector 1 is bad except for us and Plasma Wolves. I think there's 3 good teams in the league.
Type shit.
And
We'll see.
Riven in the chat agrees with me. So
I mean, it'd be like that. I think it's been very interesting to see how much Sector 1 has kind of asserted themselves over Sector 2, especially with these cross division matchups, and especially in this league. I don't know in ours how well it's shaken out, but it does tend to be a little bit of a sector diff.
It definitely does seem to be, and it will be really interesting to see, as the season progresses, if we do get to see a little bit more separation in those Sector 1 standings, if what Complex is saying does end up coming to pass, where we see the Plasma Wolves and TD Blust kind of rising to the surface. That'll be really interesting. Let's go ahead and move on now to our last league that we do need to cover, the Warden League. We don't have a representative, unfortunately, from Warden this week, but we'll do the best we can to go over what did happen. I did get to cast the Warden League this past week. That was, of course, Tilt Apotheosis versus Contingent. What color is it? Contingent Black, I believe, right? Let me just double check that. Yeah, it was Contingent Black. So, yeah, Tilt Apotheosis, they ended up being pretty one-sided games, if I recall correctly, where the jungler, Source Walker, really, really popped off. See if I can pull up those win screens really quickly. Remind myself, I believe there was a Master Yi game and a Lilia game, if memory serves. And Source Walker maybe only died once in the entire match.
So many Warden windscreens to scroll through.
I know it's a big league. Yeah, lots of teams, lots of action to cover here in Warden. Definitely a shame that we don't have a representative to walk us through it in a little bit more detail. But hopefully next week you guys will be able to get in. Amazing, thank you. And it was actually, it looks like the match results graphic was wrong. Yeah, I was thinking this, but I didn't want to say it until I double checked. But yes, it was actually the 2-0 for Contingent Black. They were able to take down Tilt Apotheosis, who was previously the only undefeated team in Warden. And Aurel, of course, we had on the show last week as well, was feeling the support for Tilt Apotheosis, was feeling pretty confident heading into this matchup, but it definitely didn't end up working out for them. They got run over by Source Walker in the jungle. It was 19-3-12 on the Master Yi for Source Walker in game number 1, and then 10-0-16 on the Lilia in game number 2. He really just kind of went off on him, got incredibly fed in both games, and carried his squad to a victory, which does, of course, mean that there are no longer any undefeated teams whatsoever here in the Warden League. Everybody's sitting on at least one loss, which I do think is quite interesting. Storm, any other results here that you wanted to point out from the Warden League in Rivals Week?
There's not a ton to really go into. Like, I feel like a lot of these were pretty expected end results. I think definitely not Aether losing 2-0 against, was it TD Death Knights? something. Team Death Knights Blue. I
yes.
thought was kind of an interesting lineup for that to happen.
Yeah. Both of those teams were winless, leading up to that match. So Team Death Knight's able to get their first win, and not Aether still sitting at 0-4 over there in Sector 2.
And then it seemed like Contingent Orange also had a bit of a rough matchup into Akuma.
Yeah, yeah.
Worm Jones had the 6-0-2 on the Garen. Almost no damage though into the Rumble. Interesting. 13k for 6-kill Garen. I don't know where those kills came. Mans
interesting.
is allergic to trading, I guess. I don't know. But
Garen difference.
for real. No, I'd say a lot of these matchups have been pretty expected for how they
Were
went.
you
Obviously, we
surprised?
have the
Were you surprised by the Contingent Black tilt results
uh,
at all? Or
so the contingent one. Looking at these games, it's hard because I don't feel like Tilt really drafted to their strengths here. Like Indigo is a really strong top laner, and he's playing a losing matchup. I don't know if they were just not willing to try to flex something between top and mid to try to force him into a winning matchup. You also drafted a comp that really doesn't have a lot of options in dealing with Yi. Obviously, I don't know the draft order to know if that Yi was picked later or not. Um, and then it's kind of the same story in their other game as well, where the Lilia just kind of gets to go on a rampage of like what deals with Lilia in this game other than like Arel has to try to find the angle to get Alistar combo, and then it has to be followed up either by Ori Shockwave into Verisalt. But I will admit
yeah,
this game does go a lot closer, but you're on a timer. You're playing into Smolder Braum on top of that, and it's just the issue of like you're on a timer. Smolder's going to become an issue, especially with another burn champion like Lilia. Like I just don't feel like in this game either they have the tools to really stop what Contingent's plan was.
yeah. That's something that we Star Burrito and I discussed on the cast as well. The fact that actually just being able to execute on the Nocturne Oriana combo was so critical for Tilt Apotheosis with this draft. You need to be able to one shot either the Lilia or the Smolder, ideally both, right? With the
Yeah.
combo, or the fights are just going to be so tough to play out. And once Contingent got ahead, once Source Walker got those first few kills, started accelerating past Zenobia, then it definitely did feel pretty doomed from that point. But Complex, coming over to you, pulling up the results from last week again. Is there anything here that you thought was interesting that you wanted to touch on, or anything you wanted to comment on, about our discussion of this matchup between Tilt and Contingent Black?
I mean, I agree with Storm. I think most games were as expected. On this Contingent Black versus Tilt, I mean, how are we allowing a 19-3 Master Yi with that much CC? I absolutely do not understand it. They did not respect the Contingent's jungler, it seems like. Especially in the second game as well, just allowing him to go 10-0 on the Lilia there. I'm assuming the Master Yi got banned game 2. Yeah, it did. But I just, with that amount of CC, it seems like you should be able to lock down Master Yi, and you should be able to just one-shot him out of the team fight. But I guess that just didn't happen. I wonder if it was more skirmishes than team fights there.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely how Source Walker got the lead initially, as there were a lot of smaller skirmishes. He was just kind of like appearing at the right place at the right time to kind of clean up fights in a lot of instances. And then, yeah, in the team fights down towards the end, once the Master Yi is strong, you have to be so crisp with that CC, right? You really have to catch him out early in the fight, or he is just going to end up running away with it. And Tilt Apotheosis, which wasn't quite able to get everything lined up the way that they needed to in that first game to really put a stop to what Source Walker was doing. And he ended up just absolutely shredding through them in that game. But let's go ahead now and take a look at some stats from that game. So we've already looked at the win screens a little bit, or maybe we've already had the stats pulled up as well. I'm not quite sure what we've been taking a look at here, but For our purposes, our discussion about the stats, Storm, what's jumping out at you between these two squads, between Tilt and Contingent?
I mean, you got to keep in mind like these teams have played different game totals, so their stats are going to sway left and right just off that premise alone. But this kind of speaks to how Contingent wants to play these games out, with having on average an entire 1 point something to do quick maths in KD, while also having about a 60 to 70-ish kill lead, and they're actually then less deaths than Tilt at that same time. So I think they definitely played the they're just going to outscrap you in little skirmishes, and then once they have the lead from that, that they're confident enough in their team fighting just to say, hey, like, 5v5, you're over. We have a 2,000 gold lead. Our carry's on a completed item, you're not. And it just is what it is. You're going to get kind of wallet smacked, especially once we get to these higher divisions where mechanical skill, I don't want to say equals out, but there's less variation between matchup to matchup.
Absolutely, yeah. Complex, anything you want to point out here for the stats?
I mean, KDA obviously way higher on contingent esports, but looking at like specific, KDA's the jungler Sourcewalker has like a 7.5 KDA and is ranked number one in the whole league. I mean, this guy's just smurfing. I don't know. Like he's got 80 kills and 20 deaths or something. It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I mean control ward's definitely a lot more. I mean, just pretty much on every stat, contingent esports is just better. Unfortunately, so definitely expected result from seeing the stats here.
Well, I assume that these stats are factoring in, what the stats from the match that was just played this past week as well. So, that obviously, given those results, that's going to help Contingent Esports blackout in the stats department quite a bit. And yes, unfortunately for Aurel, he was pleading with his team to buy more control wards. They are still lagging quite a bit behind in that stat. But I will say there was 1 point in game number 2 where everybody on the squad for Tilt Apotheosis did have a control ward in their inventory. So they're trying. They're trying to bump up their vision game, and maybe that will allow them to bounce back if they do end up meeting Contingent Esports Black again in the future at some point this season. And I should also mention, we of course have Aurel in the Twitch chat right now, admitting that the draft didn't really work out for them. I assume particularly in that game too. He was probably not very happy with the draft, and I said they could have respected a little bit more what Contingent Esports was trying to do. But let's take a look at the standings now for the Warden League for Sector Number 1. Contingent Black sitting up on top after picking up that win. They are the only 3-1 squad here in Sector Number 1. Dorado Shy is a match behind, so they still have to play their rivals week against NE Choppers, or NLE Kittens, excuse me. Choppers was the from the other league. The Kittens, that match is going to be played tonight in about 10 minutes, it looks like. They're starting Dorado versus the Kittens. So if Dorado does manage to win that match, then they are going to be able to tie Contingent Black at 3-1. So we'll have to see if that does end up coming through. Anything jumping out at you here for the Sector 1 standing, Storm?
Not really. Obviously, I wish New Origins team was doing a little bit better, dealing with a little bit of roster issues, but I think they'll hopefully get it ironed out and get a solidified 5 by the time playoffs roll around. I would assume this is still top 5 the same way ours is,
Yeah,
with
I
7
assume
teams.
so.
So other than that, I would say these are going to be about where we're going to be with ID, Akuma, NO fighting at this 4 or 5 spot. Definitely not lit. I could see dropping some games, but I think Sector 1's going to be a little bit of a mid-range slugfest, whereas I think Dorado and Contingent will both stay on top of the sector for the majority of it.
Yeah, for the New Origin squad, they're definitely going to have to start turning things around pretty soon. The Death Knights, of course, able to pick up that win this past week, hot on the heels of New Origin Direction. And New Origin Direction also, as we can see, they're a match behind. It looks like they're actually going to be playing a match against their Rivals Week opponent, which is Mint Gaming, and that's going to be played on 2/23. So that is 1 week from today, next Sunday. They're going to be playing that match at 7 p.m. So 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. So that is going to be quite a while that match did actually end up getting delayed. So pretty interesting there. And Mint Gaming, definitely not going to be a pushover, I don't think, by any means for New Origin Direction. So hopefully they are going to be able to make that happen for you, Storm. But Complex, anything you wanted to comment on for the Sector 1 standings?
From Sector 1, definitely agree. I think Contingent Esports Black is definitely the top runner here. They only dropped one game, and it was to UK and Cryptic, which I think they seem to be one of the best teams in the league. They dropped one game, but it was to Make Gaming week 1, so I don't know if they had roster issues there or what it was, but and who knows, maybe Make Gaming is just a sleeper squad, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm taking away here.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and look at Sector 2 as well. Orel's squad, Tilt Apotheosis, undefeated no longer, now tied with UKN Cryptic and the Goofy Gooners at 3-1. At least for Tilt, they can take some comfort in knowing that they did take down the Gooners back in week 3, so they at least do have that head-to-head. And then we also, of course, did mention already the Kittens and Mint Gaming yet to play their Rivals Week matchup. So even a couple of other squads that could potentially join the top of the table there at 3-1 over here in Sector 2. Anything you find especially interesting, Storm?
Not really. I feel like this side of the bracket's kind of playing out how we all semi expected it to. We'll have to see how NLE's game ends up playing out once that's rescheduled and done, because we're looking at possibly having a 4-way tie for first again. Kind of what I was saying earlier, where mechanics-wise, these teams are all going to start to be very close to each other. Like the difference in skill level between D2 to D3 isn't that big, especially in a comp environment where it can be kind of hidden if it is. But I think there's a lot of really strong teams in the Sector 2 between Cryptic, Tilt, and Goofy Gooners. NLE Kittens, I haven't seen enough of their games to really get a grasp on where I think they are power budget wise, but I think those 3 are definitely going to be front runners and teams to be paying attention to once this league gets into its playoffs.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Complex, anything else you wanted to comment on for the standings here for Sector 2?
I think there's going to be some really important matchups that happen. Not this week, but next week. The Goofy Gooners is going up against UK and Cryptic, so they'll kind of the winner there is probably going to take the leader of Sector 2 there. And Tilt is playing Mint Gaming, so maybe Mint Gaming could bring an upset there, and who knows, maybe even if Mint Gaming wins against No Direction here, they'll be tied up there for 3-1 as well. So definitely 2 really good matchups to watch that week.
Yeah, that is going to be our streamed matchup for week 6 over here in the Warden League. Is going to be Tilt versus Mint. So it'd be really interesting to see, getting a little bit more tape on Mint specifically to see if they are going to be able to join the top of the table over there in Sector 2. But let's go ahead and take a look at our matchups for this upcoming week, week number 5. We are going to have the streamed match, Team Death Knights Blue versus your sister squad, New Origin Direction Storm. That is going to be our streamed match. We're going to get into some stats for that in just a moment. We do also have, of course, Tilt Apotheosis Orel's squad going up against UK and that is the definitely not Aether squad that Tilt is going up against, who is currently still at 0-4. So that is looking like potentially a nice bounce back win for Tilt. Anything that you guys find especially interesting here for the week 5 matchups?
I think the matchup to watch is 2 matchups to watch for me. Death Knights versus No Direction, kind of to see who may be able to bring out that number 5 slot in Sector 1 there. And then also NLE Kittens versus Goofy Gooners. If we could see NLE kind of do an upset there, I think that would be pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, yeah. Those were the two squads that Aurel actually called out. He did not necessarily cite Cryptic as necessarily being some of the strongest competition that he thought he had in Sector 2. He actually pointed out the Gooners and the Kittens as the two squads that he thought might be able to challenge Tilt for the top of the standings over there. So that definitely will be a very, very interesting matchup. But let's go ahead and take a look at the stats now for our streamed match that we're going to have here in the Warden League for week number 5. Of course, as already mentioned, New Origin Direction up against Team Death Knights Blue. Team Death Knights Blue and New Origin Direction both still currently sitting just at 1 win in the standings over there in sector number 1. So both really needing to pick up some more here in the second half of the season if they do want to get into that top 5 spot, if they do want to make their way into playoffs. So Storm, coming to you first for these stats. What's jumping out at you?
I mean, obviously, there's two teams that are kind of struggling to pick up these wins, either between roster shuffles or just recently being put together. Um, so obviously, their stats are going to be kind of on the lower end. Um, on top of that, No Direction is also missing at least 1 week's games due to the reschedule.
Right.
But I want to say these teams are pretty evenly matched. Obviously, there's a little bit of leeway here and there, but I think this is going to be a really good test. Um, I feel like Valka's definitely a strong enough top laner that he should have a very big impact in this match, and that's kind of the matchup I'm going to be watching it for, is to see if my boy can bring it back or not. But other than that, I feel like these teams going into it are pretty evening out, but I'm obviously pulling for the No Direction boys.
Of course, of course. Are you predicting 2-0, 2-1 for No Direction? You want to do a prediction?
I don't even know what the roster is to really make a prediction on it, but we'll go 2-0 for the boys.
Very nice, very nice. Complex, what are your thoughts on these stats? Anything jumping out at you?
Yeah, I think I don't know if Death Knights have had like a really hard schedule so far, but I think they're currently at 1-3. But I mean, these stats look in a couple areas just way better than No Directions. Specifically the objectives. So 60 versus 27 towers taken. That shows that they've been a lot more competitive in their games, right? Versus 27 towers, they're not even getting a lot of tier 1s or tier 2s in those cases, right? So I think the other point there is the KDA. That could be specifically from them having one more game than No Direction. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good matchup. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think I'll take Death Knights 2-1.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, it seems like they have had, for the side of the Death Knights, a relatively difficult schedule. They were up against Aurel's squad, Tilt Apotheosis, in week number 1, so that was a 0-2. And then they played against the Yakima Scimitars in week number 2. The Death Knights were able to get 1 game, and that match against the Scimitars, who are, of course, currently at 500. And then week number 3, the Death Knights were playing against Dorado Gaming Shy, another team that's currently towards the top of the standings. And then last week, the Death Knights able to pick up their first win, 2-0 over Definitely Not Aether. So they, the Death Knights also do have that little bit of momentum after their week 4 win, and definitely could see them taking another victory here potentially over New Origin. Let's go ahead and move on now to our clip that we have from the Warden League. This looks like it is submitted. The title for this clip is Jokage's Cheeky Little Quad. And this is from the match between GG versus DNL. That's gonna be the Goofy Gooners, right? Versus Definitely Not Lit. There's the match that we played this past week. So let's go ahead and take a look at the clip.
I'm here. Come up to me.
Got him. I'm gonna push top. Can we stall?
On the Lucian, Jokage. First kill with the culling. And just biding his time there. Seems like enemy
Let's
team kind
go.
of just. Oh, there's a nice flash over the wall. Had that killer instinct to pick up the misfortune, and then there's the
I'm here,
cheeky
I'm
little
here.
quadra. So, you know,
Movement's
not
good from
quite
that
as
too.
good, obviously, as the Penta that we saw earlier, but. What were you saying, Storm?
So his camera movement's gonna give me a seizure.
Yeah, there's
Man has
some
jumping
interesting
all over
camera
the place.
movement there. I wonder if he was he using the F keys, do you think, or was that minimap camera movement?
I think it was a mini map, just because if he was F keying, I don't know who he F keyed to.
That's fair, yeah. It just was so abrupt that I felt like maybe you know, that was the method. Uh, anything jumping out at you in that clip, Complex?
The
You feel like it was a
man's
key
15-2 going into this clip. So
Mm.
he kind of just ran them all down. He got like 0 peel, and his team kind of just was not there for him.
Yeah,
And I think because he was so far ahead, that's why he was able to get that quadra there. He's 15 and
think
2, so that's kind of given.
that's fair. That's fair. Definitely something we need to take into account, right? When we do look at these highlights, the fact that he was clearly very, very fed at this point in the game. But I do think that the moment where he flashes over the wall to pick up the last hit onto the Misfortune was definitely. I mean, it's not necessarily impressive, but you know, the play itself, you know. But I think it's good to recognize that he has sort of that. He was able to identify that moment where he could flash in and pick up those last couple of kills. Definitely good looks there. A cheeky little quadra indeed. Looks like we do not have any submitted community questions this week, so I guess we could just go ahead now and move into some shoutouts for you guys. So, Storm, coming to you for some shoutouts. Any words you have for the stream this week?
Thank you to our guest coming on. Obviously, Rept coming in after losing. Props to him. I literally have a collie tatted on my arm. Please don't pick it into me again. Thanks to Complex and Accel, both coming and being able to talk about their leagues. Obviously, I watch a little bit of them when I can, but it's nice to have input in how other players in their divisions are shaping out. Obviously, Warden, please step it up. Give us somebody. Arel was the GOAT last week. This week, Mia.
Yeah,
But yeah, other than that,
excellent. Complex, your shoutouts, please.
Nothing really. Riven, we need him back on the pod. I heard he was on the pod last split, so we need to get him back on towards the end of the season, especially after he 1v9s this week. So exciting things to come there. But yeah. Shout out to my whole team, and yeah, we're excited for playoffs to come. And thank you guys for hosting and having me on the podcast as well. It was fun.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being here, Complex. Thank you as well, Storm, for joining me once again, of course, this week. Great to have you here once again. My other regular guests are dipping out on me, but I can always count on you, Storm. So very thankful for that. And of course, thankful to our other guests for joining us this week as well. Thank you very much to everybody watching. You guys are the real goats. And from myself, from everybody here at LXC, thank you very much for watching. And don't forget, we do have the Arbiter League, the last week of the regular season in the Arbiter League, battle between the two undefeated squads. It's going to be happening tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern. Be sure to tune in for that one. That is going to do it from us here for this week of the Top Hat Lounge. Thank you again. Have a great night.